Welcome to the next episode of Discipline, Desire, Dedication. My name is Dakota Lang, along co-host Garrett Cotton. Hey, we're in February, brother, middle of February. You know, we did the 72-hour fast. We completed that. We talked about that on the last one we did by ourselves.
Yeah, I guess let's go ahead and do a little bit of a deep dive, because last time we just barely touched on it. Kind of go through some of the emotions and some of our conversations we had as we went through that 72-hour fast. Like, what do you think was the hardest part for you?
It was just a habit. That's kind of when you're walking around and you get bored, the first thing you want to do is go to the kitchen. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Open the
I
pan.
boredom's probably the worst part about it. Yeah,
And that's the biggest advice that I would give anybody is somebody that's doing something challenging like that is find something to keep yourself busy. You know what I mean? Like I hate going to Costco, but boy, I was excited to go to Costco that day,
yeah, running errands.
running errands, So constantly keeping myself busy because I feel like boredom, you said it the other day. You were like, whenever you were growing up, your dad, whenever you were, uh, saying, "Oh, I'm hungry," he'd just be like, "No, you're just bored." You know
Yep,
what I mean?
literally.
And I don't know, that resonated with me whenever we were going through that because you constantly find yourself falling into the habit of just going into the kitchen, trying to find something.
Now, it was funny because I would walk by the pantry and like I'd be like, nope, nope, can't touch that. And then because if I touch it, I'm gonna look, I'm gonna be like, what's in here? And then that's where that temptation comes.
Yeah.
Same thing with the fridge. Like I'd go get water, but I'm like, it's a habit to get water. Also, open up the right side and just take a look of what's in the fridge, and then usually grab like a protein bar. Like I'll grab stuff, but for that 72-hour fast, is it's taking it's struggling with that temptation. But for me personally, I think the hardest part of the 72-hour fast, in my opinion, was the nighttime. If I can give any advice to anybody that ever wants to try a 72-hour fast, I would say to time it like how we timed it, where it starts. Like we finish with a big meal on like a Sunday afternoon or
Yeah, we
something like
started
that.
at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, like 4 o'clock. So 4 o'clock, I mean, going to bed on that first night, you've got a pretty full stomach, so it's not that bad going to sleep. But the second night, after a full 24 hours, that second night was pretty tough. And then that third night was like killer for me. Like I had headache, I couldn't sleep. I was restless, all that kind of stuff. But I think by starting it at 4 o'clock, the morning time wasn't bad for me, but the evenings are. But it makes it a little bit easier on your nighttime if you started at like 4 o'clock.
Right.
What did you think about it? Do you think 4 o'clock, or would you change
I
anything?
well, dude, I believe it's just simply on boredom. Like if you were just sitting around just watching the clock, you are going to be miserable. You know what I mean? But if you just have, honestly, I recommend if you want to do it, plan your 3 days out. You know what I mean? Make sure that you have activities to where you're not sitting there just thinking about the clock and okay, I only got 25 hours left or 40 hours left. You know what I mean? Constantly have massive action to where you're not focusing on it is my biggest advice. But the last morning was pretty tough. That was the first time my body was like, I don't know, it kind of felt like my body was like weak in a sense. Um,
But it was almost over the hunger by the third day,
yeah,
though.
over the hunger, it was just at my body.
Yeah, for me, the second day, I'll be honest, like it was at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was waking up like every 2 hours on the second night. I just had a killer headache. I was like, I was so hungry, because it's everybody's in that routine of eat and go to sleep.
Yep.
Like that's the end of the day. You eat, go to sleep. Sometimes you go back, get another snack, and then go, like that's just the bad habits we have.
Let's talk about this though. So, you know, everybody goes into the new year. They have a bunch of New Year's resolutions, all this, right? Around this time is when people start dying off, right? Their consistent habits that they developed or the habits that they tried to develop in the first month of the year. Um, their life gets in the way, they fall off routine, and it just goes back to what they were normally doing. That's something that me and you were very proactive on, right? We did the 72-hour fast, but consistently challenging ourselves, which we started the 75 hard. And we're on day 12 right now. So I think when this podcast gets dropped, we'll probably be on like day 20. So um, I believe that's one of the biggest crucial things for people that have those New Year's resolutions or goals that they're trying to achieve is, constantly push yourself. Find the next thing that you can challenge yourself to, because if not, then you're just going to fall back into old habits.
Yeah, because I've heard on both sides of the spectrum of 75 hard is either an amazing thing or you hate it. Because on the negative aspect of it, you hear about people, what about day 76? And that's kind of like what I experienced last year. Last year, I did 75 hard. I started it in January and it took me 9 failures to finally achieve it. So I started in January. I actually didn't finish it until 4th of July. So half of the year was doing 75 hard. But I just kept on putting my every time I would fail, I'd restart from day zero. Restart, restart, restart. But the thing that we're doing different this year is me and you've already talked about it. Is we want to have a year or a lifetime of 75 hard, where we hold ourselves accountable of working out twice a day, eating, watching what we eat. Reading. Finding the time and managing that time is like it just makes the day smoother. Would you agree with
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. It definitely makes the day smoother. But it also goes back to just planning, man. You know what I mean? If you We talk about it because I relate back to whenever you failed it, whenever you were moving to Utah. You know what I mean? Like, even with our schedules, we travel a lot for work.
Yep.
So as long as I plan it out, like if I know, okay, I'm traveling, I fly out tomorrow at 2, right? Blah, blah, blah. As long as I plan it out and I know which times I'm going to do my exercises or, right, drink my water, blah, 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 read, all that good stuff. As long as I have it planned out, then I think it's very easy.
I think that's and it comes back Grant Cardone, billionaires. They always talk about success is whenever you manage when you master managing your time, because we always tell people, especially that are coming into our industry and they're brand new into door to door, they just wake up and it's like, what does today got for me? They were like, oh, I hope tomorrow's better, but with no planning. But that's what I think I love so much about 75 hard is every day I know what tomorrow has to tomorrow I know that there's 5 things that are going to get accomplished every single day, so then fitting in the other things, it almost makes my life more productive.
Yeah, and I on top of that though is like, what talking about like people coming into the door to door industry, and it demands a lot of time. You know what I mean? And I feel like it just comes back to how committed are you? You know what I mean? Because if you're truly committed to it and it's non-negotiable for you, then you're gonna find the time, and that comes from planning. So, making sure that you're 100% committed, because if you go in and you're just gonna try it, well, then that's exactly what you're gonna do is you're gonna try it.
Accountability partners. I don't think I've done 75 hard once by myself. Last year we had a group of like 20 people in a group message. And I think I'm the only one that finished it because I kept on restarting and restarting and restarting and restarting. But, if I think it's the fact of I would post something in a group every day. And, it's the subconscious of like, if I don't post it today, they know I didn't do it. So even though it's me versus me, I'm doing it because I got to it's almost like seeking approval in a sense.
Yeah,
Do you do that?
100%. Well, you remember the last time we were on here, I was talking about Gage Heward, and that's something that I implemented. Right, people follow me on social media, every morning I'm posting me in the gym working out. You know what I mean? But that accountability is kind of like what you said. Like if I don't post it, people are gonna be like, "Ah, Dakota done fell off." You know what I mean? He ain't doing it.
Isn't that crazy how our perspectives have changed where it used to be like, should I post this? Like, people might think this.
Yep.
Now it's I gotta post this or else they're gonna think this.
Exactly.
It's like flipped it a whole different thing.
Especially, just being consistent with it. I believe, and I take Gage's advice is like social media is the next level of accountability because that's where everybody's judged,
Yeah.
So,
I think yeah, that's true. Everybody keeps up with
and
it.
then we get Journey and Caitlin's input on how cringy we are.
Yeah.
So we
But that makes me wanna do it more. I'm like, "Oh, you didn't like that? Let me post this."
Heck yeah. Well, yeah, I think we're still going through that. Let's talk about work a little bit. We've been traveling. I just got back from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been on like 3 or 4 trips already this year. So we had our company conference, got a bunch of episodes from that dropping. Um, And honestly, even if you're not with performance windows, those people that we brought on that podcast have a lot of insight on just how to run a successful business. So definitely make sure you listen to those as well. But as far as work and travel, you got any big plans, or what kind have you been seeing?
Knoxville just opened up February 1st, so I'll be going to Knoxville next week. Really and truly, the growth of the company is like the biggest mission. We did 150 million as a company this past year, and our goal is 250 million, which is insane to increase that much. But I mean, it's very possible. And yeah, the biggest thing that I'm kind of looking forward to is the new opportunities that our company is going to develop. As of right now, when we came in the company, there was only 3 positions. Now there's 4 positions to work for, and this year we should be opening up new positions, which means new growth for us.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is heavy involvement. I want to outwork everybody in the room. I want to travel as much as possible, be in those offices, and just be prepared for the next position. So
Yeah.
listeners as well. The opportunity is endless. You can come in and this would be your first year in the industry, and you can be competing with me and Dakota within 12 months. Like that's what's absolutely possible.
Yeah. A lot of growth for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to is especially just this year is going to be an insane year for our business.
Yep. And one thing that me and you have focused on, and kind of like what we talked about at the end of last year, is just making sure that just our personal growth. You know what I mean? We got a lot of exciting things for DDD.
I was just thinking, should we throw that
Well,
out
I
there?
was going to
Tell
say
the
this because on our previous episode that we did, I can't remember if it was December or January. Our goal was to have the Shopify full. We have our Shopify, but we wanted it to be, I guess you can say, elevated in a sense. By February 1st. We're a little bit behind that schedule, but it's going to be for the better. So we actually have a meeting today with some people, and we got a bunch of cool merch out. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned for that. As soon as we get all of that laid out, we'll have all the Shopify. You can get to buy your merch, get it shipped straight to your doorstep. So super convenient.
so on your trip to Albuquerque, maybe kind of give us a little bit of insight of what some of the things you accomplished in Albuquerque this past week.
Yeah, I would say Albuquerque is a big market. It's a very good market.
What was the main goal of going for it? Or was it kind of, or was it just like on your rotation this week, or was it kind of?
It was on rotation. One of the biggest things I want to get in front of all my market owners in Q1. You know what I mean? So I wanted to get a big push and also make sure we were carrying momentum from the conference. So that's one of my biggest things but especially like specific things that I wanted to make sure of, and kind of what we went over in like market owner meeting that I actually recognized is the small things, right? So first day I'm there, guess what? We got knockers coming into the meeting late. Well, you already know what I do when that happens. Hey, brother, I can't show up late, neither can you. So it's gonna be off day. You know what I mean? See you tomorrow. Try again. But guess what? The guy that I did send home, he came in the next morning and he actually texted one of the closers and like, "Oh, dude, I'm gonna be there early tomorrow morning." You know what I mean? And then he come in there and thank you. You know what I mean? Thank you for being here. All this good stuff. But I feel like a lot of market owners, they don't do that just because I don't know. I guess it's like a fear. You know what I mean? I don't even know why, because I always tell them like, what happens if you show up late? You know what I mean? You don't have the opportunity to show up late. Neither do they. Everybody is their own business owner in this organization.
Yeah, our goal is to develop leaders, but it's funny because I was in Jacksonville, not this week, but last week I was in Jacksonville, and it's funny because every time I get into an office that's starting to see a little decline, the first thing that we notice is it's the small things that the market owner is not holding the office accountable
Mhm.
for. So, for instance, like you'll see people walking in late, see people coming in and they're not in uniform ready for the morning meeting, or they're yawning, and it comes back to the market owner holding that high standard of the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. So whenever we start to see dips in revenue, then we start listening to zeros and we start getting a little bit of deep dive. What do we notice? That the knocker scripts are now they're off script,
Yeah.
and then we got to go through a 3 day process of getting people back on script. And I think that's where, I mean, our job is super simple.
Mhm.
We can teach anybody to do it, but I think the biggest issue is we see that our leadership tries to overcomplicate.
Yeah, I want to top on that on overcomplicating is because like like you're talking about, you go in there, beat down, getting back on script. And one thing that I really resonates with a lot of people is, I mean, even Hayden was telling me, he was like, dude, or I was on the phone with Kyle, and we had calls with multiple other people. And one thing that Kyle mentioned on one of the phone calls is like, dude, if you came and traveled with us to all these different offices, you would get bored because we run the same stuff, right? And it's simple meetings, right? But I feel like these market owners, whenever they're, maybe their offices are taking a dip, they overcomplicate and they got to think they have what they call the secret sauce. You know what I mean? This secret sauce on, how to get good again, when in reality, all you got to do is just get back to the fundamentals, and that's where your success is going to come from.
It even comes back to that. I mean, everybody's seen it. There's motivation and there's discipline. Discipline is doing it the right way every single time, regardless of who's around. Motivation is getting excited to go do it,
Yep.
And I think that's where our market owners, instead of just the discipline is being on script. The discipline is hitting the right combos, not skipping doors. The discipline is being, energized when you're out there, whenever you're working. For me, I'm drinking an energy drink or a coffee before the meeting. I'm going to ensure that I'm energized and engaged so that the value is retained. Same thing with the evening session. It's only out there for 3 hours of a knocking. I'm going to ensure that I'm like dialed and making sure that I'm doing things right.
Yep.
But it's not relying on motivation, not relying on a same day incentive or something like that. It's me going out there and doing what the system says, and then the results will follow.
Yeah, and one thing, kind of talking about like if drinking your coffee and getting prepared for the day. That's one area that I feel like a lot of people fall short. In our offices, we were great leaders, so people understood the agenda, what had to happen. But some of these other people, leaders, right? This is where their shortcoming is because they're rolling up in their office, right? Bushy eyed, rubbing their eyes, you know what I mean? Look like they got two pillows up underneath, big old bags, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And it's like,
Sleepy.
yeah, sleepy. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, how are you expecting these people to follow you when you running in here rubbing your eyes and they about to go into the streets and bang doors? You know what I mean? Like nobody wants to work for somebody like that. I don't. One thing that Levi said at the conference, and I was talking to him about a speech, and my favorite thing that he said was like, um, somebody in the crowd asked him like, "What's your end goal?" And he said, "There ain't no end goal." You know what I mean? I'm gonna keep working until I die.
Yeah.
And that's the type of leader that I want to work for.
a hundred
Not
percent.
somebody who's gonna wake up in the morning, come in here rubbing your eyes while after I just got done hitting, having a workout and having my breakfast, and I'm ready to go with a coffee in my hand. You know what I
Yep.
mean? We're two different people here. You know what I mean? We're chasing two different things. So to be a good leader, you got to be able to do those types of things because you can't hold other people accountable. And that's one thing that I see all the time when I go in these offices. And this is on a higher scale, but even as a lower person, and we're in 100% commission based job. If you want to live that lifestyle, you need to go get salary, brother. You
Yep.
need to go find you somewhere where you can just show up to work and do your thing. You know what I
Clock
mean?
in, and you don't have to talk to
Yeah.
people, and you don't have to sell, but selling is a very, very, you have to be in the right mindset. You have to feel good. You have to do
Be
good.
prepared.
Yeah, and it comes back to as far as like leadership. On that topic of leadership, I tell every one of my market owners that you have to be the person you want to be led by. You have to be the mentor. You have to be, in our sense, you got to be Levi. Like Levi, on a physical aspect, that motherfucker works out all the time. He's in the gym, he's staying hard, and that's like another thing. It holds us to a standard because I want to outwork him. I want to make bigger checks than him one day, but you ain't going to do that without having some of those daily habits that he has,
Facts.
but even on a lower level as market owners in this company, it's a double-edged sword because you can progress so fast, but you have to be developing yourself as you go. Because if you don't, you get up to the top, it's super easy to fall off of your horse and, people realize who you really are.
And let's dive into that real quick before we, get ready to wrap up. But with the amount of growth that we have in the company, right? And from our perspectives, we're able to relate to it so easily because me and you grew within the company extremely quick. But I feel like the difference between me and you and some of these other people that, fast track, and I don't say fast, I don't like fast track because they did earn it, but they get to that point, and like you said, they're not still growing, you know. And I feel like that comes back to vision. If you don't have the vision to be able to grow as a person, grow your business even more, right? Complacency will kill you, and that's one thing with in this industry with the growth of performance windows is that even if you have the quick success, right? You qualify to become closer in 3 months, right? Well, that don't mean it's time to kick up your feet. Now it's time to work harder, right? You become market owner in 8. We have market owners that are doing that, right? It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. It's amazing, right? That just is a chapter of it's a testament of the growth that we have with performance windows that people are able to do that. But you cannot kick your feet up at that moment. You have to realize there's so much growth that you have to do, because if not, we've seen it time and time again where you just fall back into the place that you were.
Yeah, no, it happens all the time. And if you get into a new role and a promotion and the work becomes easier, then you might as well just start bracing for impact because you're going to be crashing soon.
I like that.
So but it's just an idea. It's like whenever it's kind of I relate back to David Goggins' book Never Finished. I'm so glad that I read that book when I got my first promotion from knocker to closer, because in that first week I got to closer and I'm like, oh my gosh, I finally made it. Like this is it. And then I'm in the middle of Never Finished and I'm reading. It's like even when you get to the next stop, it doesn't even you're not don't even think you're done. Like life doesn't stop. The grind doesn't stop. And so that like opened my eyes up as a closer to go out there and do what I did as a closer, where for 5 months of being a closer, every month was better and better and better. But it's coming back to that mindset of you're never finished. When you get to market owner, don't think that you're going to have less hours to work. So you're going to have more time. No, it's going to be daylight to dark. You need to be dialed all the time. You need to always be answering that phone. You need to be a leader. And then at regional, you know, even though may not be in an office every day, how many off days we get?
None.
There's not a
Yeah.
such thing. It's how many calls did you have this morning before 7 o'clock?
No, 3, 4.
Before 7 a.m. Market owners don't get to the office till 9, and some of them don't answer the phone until
Yeah.
9:30. So, but it just comes back to the grind and our willingness to go out there and outwork.
Yeah. Exactly.
This is a dog eat dog world in the commission industry, and if you are hungry, you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if you stop working, it stops flowing. Just know.
I like what you said is you better get ready to brace for the impact.
Yeah, if he gets comfortable. I mean, but we've seen it so many times, even people in our downline, like, I'm not going to say
Right.
specifically, but when people start calling me and saying that they're going to lease a Porsche or they're going to buy a Porsche or something like that, I'm like, "Bitch, I've been in the company longer than you and I ain't got no Porsche." But it's again, it's my focus is not on having the nice things right now. My focus is on building wealth until there's so much wealth there that a Porsche wouldn't even impact that. It's not going till I can buy a Porsche and then put my feet up. It's going till a Porsche is, like chump money,
Yeah.
but it's just different perspectives and we see it that way.
Yep, absolutely. Well, cool deal. Well, we appreciate all of you watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to all of our channels. And they also have a notification bell as well. So you'll be notified anytime that we ever drop a video or short or anything like that. We appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you guys next time.